Welcome to Stoic Philosophy for Life. This is not just a place to listen to books, it's a space to feel them with your soul. Here, we illuminate your mind with timeless lessons. Awaken your inner strength, cultivate self-minded discipline, and guide your journey of personal growth. Every word is carefully chosen to reach what you're truly seeking: peace, clarity, and lasting transformation. If this feels like the place for you, hit subscribe and walk this path with us every single day. Now, put on your headphones, take a deep breath, and begin the journey of renewing your mind and your life.
13. Things you need to know to live a happy life. Have you ever noticed how heavy life feels when you forget to laugh? Maybe it starts with something small, a delayed message, a minor mistake at work, or an awkward interaction, but the weight builds, slowly pressing down until even the simplest joys feel out of reach. In a world that celebrates achievement, seriousness, and constant productivity, we have forgotten something simple, something sacred: lightness. Not the absence of care, but the presence of perspective. This is not about telling jokes or pretending to be happy. It is about remembering that amidst all the chaos, you still have the power to choose your state of being. That is what this video is really about. It is not another list of self-help tips. It is a reminder drawn from Stoic wisdom and modern behavioral science that happiness has always been hidden in the small, quiet choices we ignore every day. By the end of this journey, if you stay with me, you will not just understand what a joyful life looks like, you will start living one. So let me ask you again, when was the last time you truly laughed? Not because something was funny, but because you chose lightness over heaviness. Epictetus once said, "People are not disturbed by things, but by the view they take of them." It is one of those lines that seems simple until life tests you, until you are stuck in traffic, or someone disappoints you, or plans fall apart. The Stoics were not emotionless. They were anchored. They did not believe in suppressing joy. They believed in choosing it, especially when life felt difficult. That is where laughter fits in, not as an escape, but as a kind of resistance, a reclaiming of control. Modern science agrees. When we laugh, our brains release endorphins and serotonin, natural mood lifters. Cortisol and adrenaline, the hormones that flood us during stress, begin to drop. Laughter, in a very real sense, is like hitting the reset button on your nervous system. It helps you breathe easier, sleep better, see more clearly. I want you to imagine life as a roller coaster, fast turns, unexpected drops, and moments where your stomach leaps into your throat. Laughter is the safety harness. It does not remove the chaos, but it helps you ride through it. It gives you a way to say, "This too I can handle." There is a story of a cancer patient who joined a laughter therapy group. She said it was the only place where she felt like herself again. Even as her body weakened, her spirit grew stronger. Think about that. Laughter gave her strength not because it solved her problems, but because it reminded her she was more than her problems. So how do you practice this kind of laughter? Start small. Laugh at the absurdity of life, at your own clumsy mistakes, at the memes your friend sends you, even if they are only mildly funny. Put on a comedy while you do the dishes. Play with your pet like a child. You do not need a perfect setup, you only need permission, and that permission can only come from you. Picture this: you are late, stuck in traffic, fuming. You could tighten your grip on the steering wheel and stew in frustration. Or you could laugh at the ridiculousness of it all. Turn up a funny podcast, make faces in the mirror. It will not speed things up, but it will make you feel free. And sometimes freedom begins with choosing joy even when it makes no logical sense. If you are still here listening, then like me, you are probably done with living passively. Look back at your last 3 reactions. Were they born from control or from chaos? Laughter is not weakness. It is self-mastery wrapped in joy. A reminder that your peace is not tied to outcomes, but to perspective. Now, let us shift gears. Let us talk about a place that has always offered us peace, yet we keep moving further away from it. I am talking about nature. Think about your average day. How much of it is spent indoors? Fluorescent lights, blue screens, processed air. We live in concrete boxes, drive metal ones, and escape into digital ones. But here is the truth: your mind was not designed to thrive in this kind of environment. It was designed to move with the seasons, to rise with the sun, to rest when it sets. That rhythm, the rhythm of nature, is not optional. It is essential. Marcus Aurelius said, "Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished." In nature, nothing is rushed, yet nothing is left undone. There is a silent wisdom in the rustling of leaves, in the flow of rivers, in the cycle of seasons. The Stoics believed that to live well, we must live in alignment with this natural order, not against it. Science has caught up. A study published in Environmental Health Perspectives found that just 20 minutes in a green space can significantly reduce cortisol levels. That means lower stress, clearer thinking, and a body that can finally breathe. Forest bathing, a practice born in Japan, has shown that even brief time spent among trees can improve immune function, lower blood pressure, and increase energy. You do not need a forest. You do not need a mountain. You only need the intention to step outside. A patch of grass, a tree-lined street, a balcony that catches the morning light. These are not luxuries, they are necessities. I want you to remember a moment, just one, when you were outside and everything felt still. Maybe it was a sunset, a breeze, the sound of water, that feeling that was not just peace. That was alignment. That was your soul remembering where it came from. Seneca believed that nature teaches us the most important lessons: patience, resilience, acceptance. He wrote, "We should take wandering outdoor walks so that the mind might be nourished and refreshed by the open air and deep breathing." How often do you do that? How often do you let the world remind you that it is still spinning with or without your stress? If you want a practical step, make this a ritual. Step outside every morning, even if just for a few minutes. Let the sun hit your face. Walk without your phone. Notice something you have never noticed before: the shape of a cloud, the chirp of a bird, the scent of fresh air. You are not wasting time. You are restoring it. The more you do this, the more you will crave it. The more you will realize that you do not need to get away to feel peace. You only need to reconnect. Your nervous system will thank you. Your thoughts will slow. And your heart, that part of you that gets buried under emails and deadlines, will start to beat in tune with something ancient and wise. Let me ask you something difficult. When was the last time you stood still and felt the earth under your feet? Not thought about it, not read about it, but truly felt it. Most of us live as if we are floating, rootless, disconnected, and that is why we feel so lost. You do not need more information. You need more embodiment, more grounding, more simplicity. Nature gives you that for free, but only if you show up, only if you remember. So laugh more, step outside, take a breath, then take another. This is not complicated, but it is powerful. And if you do it not once, but daily, you will start to feel a shift. Not because life got easier, but because you became stronger, calmer, and closer to who you are meant to be. If this message moved you, share it with someone who needs it. There is a moment each morning when the alarm sounds and you face your first choice of the day. Do you rise or do you roll over and retreat? That decision, though it seems small, sets the tone for everything that follows. It is not just about waking up. It is about showing up for your life, for your purpose, for the things you say matter most. Most people dread mornings. They see them as an interruption to comfort. But the Stoics saw dawn differently. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor with the weight of an empire on his shoulders, once wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I am rising to do the work of a human being." It was not about obligation. It was about opportunity. Every morning is a reset, a clean slate, a chance to choose who you will be today. Will you lead? Will you drift? Will you reclaim the steering wheel or leave it to luck and distraction? Science supports what the Stoics already knew. People who wake up early report higher levels of optimism, productivity, and emotional well-being. Researchers at the University of Toronto found that early risers are more proactive and more satisfied with their lives. And it makes sense. When you start the day with intention, you are not chasing time, you are commanding it. There is something sacred about the early hours. The world is still. The noise has not begun. The phone is silent. In those moments, you can hear something most people never hear, your own thoughts. You can breathe without interruption, plan without urgency, reflect without distraction. The Stoics valued these moments. They believed in preparing the mind like a warrior sharpens his sword before battle. Morning is your time to sharpen your spirit. But maybe you are thinking, I am just not a morning person. That is not identity, that is conditioning. And like any habit, it can be rewired. Start small. Go to bed 15 minutes earlier. Wake up 15 minutes earlier. Use that extra time for something that nourishes you, not your to-do list, but your soul. Journal, stretch, read, or simply sit with a cup of coffee and watch the sun rise. The goal is not to become someone else. The goal is to become more you before the world gets its hands on you. Seneca, another Stoic master, said, "The mind must be given relaxation. It will rise improved and sharper after a good break." Morning is that break from the chaos. It is a return to clarity. When you begin your day with purpose, something changes. You are not reacting. You are leading. You are no longer pushed around by emails, headlines, and demands. You become the one who sets the direction, and that sense of control, that is where confidence is born. So ask yourself this: how many mornings have you already wasted waiting to feel ready? And how many more will you let pass before you reclaim them? Now, waking up early is only the first step. The next is knowing what to do with that time. And this brings us to something the Stoics were obsessed with: the wise use of time. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Let that sink in. Most people do not run out of time. They squander it moment by moment, hour by hour, in distraction, in hesitation, in passivity. But the remedy is not more hustle. It is purpose. Have you ever noticed how some days vanish and others feel full and rich? The difference is not always what happens. It is whether you planned it. A well-packed day does not mean cramming every minute with activity. It means choosing with intention. It means filling your hours with things that matter to your growth, your peace, your people, your mission. Think of time like a bank account. Every morning you are given 24 hours. You cannot carry them over. You cannot earn more. You can only spend them. Most people spend theirs on autopilot, scrolling, reacting, drifting. But the Stoics would ask, what are you investing in? What kind of life are you building with your days? Purpose does not mean you need a grand plan. It just means asking yourself a better question. What do I want to build today? That could be a stronger body, a calmer mind, a deeper relationship, a small piece of a dream you have been putting off. Even rest can be purposeful if it is chosen. The point is not to be busy. The point is to be awake. Try this. At the start of each day, pick 3 things you will do with full presence. Not just checkboxes, but real moments. A focused hour of creative work, a meaningful conversation, a quiet walk without your phone. When you do this, you are not just managing time, you are honoring it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about others when you neglect to direct your own. In other words, stop looking outward for meaning. Start crafting it with the choices you make each hour. You do not have to get everything done. You just have to do what matters. You do not need more hours. You need more clarity, and you already have that if you make space to listen. Imagine your day like a landscape. You could let weeds grow wild, or you could plant seeds of discipline, of rest, of kindness, of progress. And the harvest. That is the life you wake up into, not someday but every day. If you feel overwhelmed, start even smaller. Ask yourself one question every morning. What is the most loving, purposeful thing I could do with this hour? Then do it. Then ask again. Because in the end, your life will not be measured by your intentions. It will be shaped by how you spent your days, by what you built moment by moment while everyone else was scrolling. If you are still listening, I know something about you. You are not content with drifting. You want direction. You want to live like it matters, and it does. But no one is coming to give you permission. The morning is already waiting. The time is already ticking, and the life you want, it is not found in some future peak. It is made every morning you choose to rise with purpose, and every day you fill with meaning. There comes a time when the thing you once loved, the hobby, the dream, the path that once made your soul come alive, starts to feel like a burden. The progress slows. The motivation fades. The world moves on, and you begin to wonder, is it worth it? Should I quit? But before you walk away, ask yourself this: are you tired from doing the work or from doing it without hope? Every one of us at some point reaches this crossroad. It is a quiet moment rarely seen by others, where you must choose whether to keep going or let go. And that moment matters more than you think, because how you answer it will shape not just what you achieve, but who you become. The Stoics were no strangers to struggle. They lived through exile, illness, loss, betrayal. And yet they believed this simple truth: difficulty is not a reason to quit. It is the reason to continue. Seneca said, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare, but because we do not dare that things are difficult." In other words, fear is not proof that you are failing. It is proof that you are growing. When you quit on what you love, you do more than leave something behind. You abandon a part of yourself, the part that dares, the part that dreams, the part that still believes there is something beautiful on the other side of effort. Think back. When was the last time you stuck with something, even when it was hard? Learning a new skill, training your body, starting a project no one else believed in. Maybe you doubted yourself. Maybe you stumbled, but you kept going. And in the process, you built something no one could take away: your own strength. Modern psychology calls this grit, the ability to persist over time, even when rewards are delayed. Research shows that people who stick with their passions are more likely to feel fulfilled, less likely to burn out, and more likely to lead meaningful lives. Why? Because purpose is not found in the easy path. It is forged in the fire of consistency. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That is not just philosophy, that is strategy. The challenge is not blocking your path. It is the path. That moment when you want to give up, that is the invitation to become something greater than you were yesterday. So how do you keep going when nothing seems to be working? Start by remembering why you began. Go back to the spark, the feeling, the vision that lit you up. Then let that be your compass, not your current emotion, not your external results, just that deeper knowing that this matters even if no one else understands it. Next, stop measuring progress only by outcomes. The Stoics focused on process. They knew that while results are not always in your control, effort is. Show up, do the work, water the seed. You might not see the tree yet, but the roots are growing silently, powerfully. And when the weight feels unbearable, break it down. Focus only on the next step. One action, one page, one repetition, one conversation. That is how mountains are moved, not all at once, but one stone at a time. But perseverance is only one side of the coin. The other is harder to see, yet just as vital to a meaningful life. That is, kindness. In a world that rewards the loudest voice, the fastest hand, the sharpest edge, kindness can feel outdated, even weak. But make no mistake, kindness is strength. not the kind that dominates, the kind that endures, that heals, that builds bridges instead of walls. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Kindness is invincible, but only when it is sincere." Think about that. Real kindness cannot be taken from you, not by insult, not by rejection, not by the hardness of others, because it comes from within. It is not a transaction, it is a choice, a posture, a way of being, and yet it is so easy to forget. The world moves fast. People are stressed, distracted, hurting. You get cut off in traffic, ignored in conversation, brushed aside in line. Your instinct may be to snap back, to match coldness with coldness, but that is not control. That is reaction. The Stoics taught the opposite. They believed that how you respond is the only thing that truly belongs to you. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And in this case, self-mastery looks like patience. But kindness is not just about restraint. It is active. It is showing up for someone even when you are tired, listening when it would be easier to talk, giving when you expect nothing in return. These are not random acts, they are radical ones. Because in a world that teaches us to protect, compete, isolate, kindness connects. Science calls it the kindness contagion effect. One sincere gesture, a compliment, a helping hand, a smile sets off a chain reaction. The person you touch is more likely to pass it on. And the result, a quieter kind of revolution. One you may never fully see, but one you start. Kindness also heals the one who gives it. Studies from UCLA show that people who perform kind acts experience reduced stress, improved mood, and better physical health. Why? Because kindness releases oxytocin, the connection hormone. Your body knows the truth when you give love. You get stronger. The Stoics saw all humans as part of a universal family. They believed that to live well, we must live in service, not servitude to one another. As Epictetus put it, we are all brothers and sisters by nature. This means kindness is not just moral, it is natural. It brings us back to what we already are connected. And if you are wondering whether kindness really matters in a world so cold, remember this: being kind does not mean being soft. It means being rooted, knowing who you are and choosing not to let the darkness of the world extinguish your light. Kindness is holding the door even when no one says thank you. It is forgiving someone who does not deserve it, not for them, but for your own peace. It is showing compassion to yourself when you fail, because growth was never meant to be a punishment. If you are still with me, I know you understand this truth deep down. You know that life is not just about pushing through. It is also about showing up with a soft heart in a hard world. That is not weakness, that is courage. So today, hold on to what you love and give out what the world desperately needs. Persevere and be kind. That is the Stoic paradox. The strongest souls are those who refuse to quit and who choose compassion anyway. How many moments have you missed not because they never came, but because you never said yes? Life is not short because of time. It is short because of hesitation. We say no by default. No to invitations that stretch us. No to chances that scare us. No to people we do not know and places we have not yet seen. And over time we begin to confuse caution with wisdom. But let me ask you, what if saying yes is not reckless? What if it is liberating? We often say no to protect ourselves from discomfort, from embarrassment, from the unknown. But the Stoics would tell you this: what you fear is often the very thing you need to face. Epictetus wrote, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And in that spirit, saying yes is not about being impulsive. It is about being open. Think about the last opportunity you turned down. Maybe it was a party where you would not know many people, a new project at work that felt overwhelming, a trip you talked yourself out of. What if you had said yes? Maybe nothing extraordinary would have happened, or maybe, just maybe, your world would have gotten a little bigger. Saying yes is not about chasing every experience. It is about breaking the loop. about recognizing that the comfort zone is not peace. It is quiet fear dressed as routine. And the longer you stay inside it, the smaller your life becomes. There is a scientific reason behind this. New experiences trigger the release of dopamine, the chemical associated with motivation and reward. Trying something unfamiliar literally lights up your brain. That is not just psychology. That is biology. You were designed to explore, to stretch, to grow. The Stoics knew this. They believed in growth through challenge, not ease. Marcus Aurelius said difficulties are things that show a person who they are. When you say yes to discomfort, you are not betraying safety, you are claiming identity. You are saying, I am more than my fear. You do not have to leap blindly. You just have to lean forward. Say yes to coffee with someone new. Say yes to the class you have been thinking about. Say yes to the version of yourself you have not met yet, because the door will not always stay open. And sometimes the courage to step through it is the very thing that changes everything. Now here is the paradox. You must say yes more often, but also learn to say no to distraction. You must open the door to life while closing the window that steals your attention. And in today's world, that window is your phone. Let us be honest. Most of us do not use our phones. We live through them. We check them in line, in meetings, at dinner, even in bed. But each time we pick them up, we put something else down, our presence, our awareness, our capacity to be here, now. The Stoics may not have had smartphones, but they understood the danger of distraction. Seneca wrote, "He who is everywhere is nowhere. When your mind is scattered, your soul is silenced." When your attention is divided, you lose the richness of what is in front of you. We convince ourselves we are multitasking, but what we are really doing is escaping from boredom, from silence, from reflection, the very things that help us grow, the very things that tell us who we are. Modern research proves this. Excessive smartphone use is linked to anxiety, depression, and poor sleep. The blue light delays melatonin production. The notifications trigger cortisol, and the endless scroll disconnects you from yourself, not metaphorically, neurologically. But here is the good news. You can take back control. One choice at a time. Start by setting boundaries. Turn off your phone during meals. Put it away when you are with someone who matters. Leave it outside your room at night. These are not restrictions. They are acts of self-respect. Create phone-free zones in your day, even just 15 minutes. Step outside, take a walk, sit in silence, journal, stretch, notice the wind that sounds your breath. These are the moments where your soul whispers things your phone will never say. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." You do not need a remote island to find peace. You need presence. And presence begins the moment you stop reaching for distraction and start reaching inward. If you are wondering whether disconnecting will make you fall behind, the answer is yes, you will fall behind on what does not matter. But you will move forward in what does. Focus, clarity, peace. The most valuable currency today is not information. It is attention. And the most radical act of power is choosing where to place it. Will you spend it on noise or on depth, on novelty or on truth? Let me be clear. Technology is not the enemy. Addiction is. Your phone is not the problem. Your relationship to it is. And like all relationships, it must be intentional. So say yes to new adventures. Say yes to human connection. Say yes to the chance that scares you, but also say no to the habit that numbs you. Because life is not happening on a screen. It is happening here, now, in this breath, in this step, in this quiet invitation to look up and see again. If you are still listening, maybe this message found you at the right time. Maybe you have been scrolling too much. Maybe you have been saying no too often. And maybe, just maybe, it is time to start doing the opposite. Say yes to your life. Say no to what dulls it. And watch what happens when your mind returns to the moment. There is a silent belief running through our culture that rest must be earned, that taking breaks is weakness, and that the more exhausted you are, the more worthy you become. But ask yourself honestly, has running yourself into the ground ever made you feel more alive, or has it only made you feel less? We glorify productivity. We fill every slot in our calendars. We chase goals like they are lifelines, only to find ourselves empty, anxious, and unsure why we feel so far from peace. But here is the truth the Stoics understood long ago. Rest is not the opposite of work. It is the fuel of it. It is not an escape. It is a return to clarity, to strength, to wholeness. Seneca, the master of balance and wisdom, wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." That is what rest really is. Not laziness, not apathy, but the radical decision to be here, to breathe, to stop chasing long enough to remember why you were running in the first place. Modern science agrees. Our brains are not designed for constant focus. After about 90 minutes of effort, cognitive performance starts to decline. Focus turns to fog. Creativity dries up. Stress builds. But when you take breaks, even short ones, something changes. Mental fatigue fades. Mood improves. Energy returns. One study from the University of Illinois found that brief breaks during mental tasks increase focus and reduce burnout. Another revealed that vacations, even short ones, significantly boost happiness and well-being, and not just temporarily. The positive effects often last long after you return. Why? Because stepping away from routine resets your nervous system. It reminds your body that it is safe to slow down. That rest is not falling behind. It is catching up with yourself. The Stoics saw this as living in harmony with nature. Even Marcus Aurelius, ruler of the Roman Empire, would retreat into solitude, into nature, into stillness. He did not call it weakness, he called it strength. So what does this mean for you? It means rest is not a reward for burnout. It is a responsibility to your best self. It means you need to plan for recovery as much as you plan for results. It means you can take a walk in the middle of your day without guilt. It means you can close your laptop and step outside, not because you are done, but because you are human. If you cannot take a full vacation, take a micro one. A few hours away from noise, a day without screens, a Sunday with no agenda. Find what resets you. Nature, silence, laughter, movement, then protect it fiercely. And when you do travel, do it not to escape your life, but to see it again with new eyes. Go to new places, not to impress anyone, but to reawaken something forgotten in you. The Stoics believed in this. They believed in expanding your mind, not just your map. But rest alone is not enough. There is another kind of nourishment you cannot find in solitude, the nourishment of connection. In all your chasing of goals, of growth, of greatness, do not forget the people waiting quietly at your side. The friends, the family, the ones who have seen you at your best and at your breaking point, the ones you swore you would make more time for once things slowed down. The Stoics believed that while self-mastery was vital, life was not meant to be lived alone. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Men exist for the sake of one another. We are here not just to improve ourselves, but to support each other. And that kind of connection does not happen by accident. It happens by intention." Look at the research. The longest study on human happiness, conducted by Harvard over 75 years, found one clear result. Strong relationships are the most consistent predictor of a happy, healthy life. Not income, not fame, connection. The people who prioritized relationships lived longer, felt less stress, and recovered faster from setbacks. But the world pulls us in the opposite direction. Notifications instead of conversations, deadlines instead of dinners, distractions instead of eye contact. It is not that we do not care, it is that we forget. And in forgetting others, we slowly forget ourselves. Seneca once said, "There is no enjoying the possession of anything valuable unless one has someone to share it with. Read that again. Achievement without connection is a hollow victory. Joy without someone to witness it fades quickly. Even pain when shared becomes bearable. So how do you return to what matters? Start small. Call someone you love today. Invite them to lunch. Send a voice message instead of a like. Be present when you are with them, not half present. Not checking your phone, just there, listening, laughing, letting your guard down. And do not wait for the perfect moment. There is no such thing. The time to connect is now, while they are here, while you are here, because one day they will not be, and neither will you. And the only thing that will matter then is whether you showed up. If there are wounds in your relationships, do not bury them. Mend them. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It is releasing yourself from the weight of resentment. The Stoics believed in rational compassion, not blind tolerance, but wise understanding. You do not have to agree with everyone, but you can choose kindness anyway. Relationships are messy. People are flawed, but that is the beauty of it. The imperfection is what makes it real. It is what makes the laughter deeper, the silence more comfortable, the love more human. If you are still listening, maybe this part hits close to home. Maybe you have been so focused on building your life that you forgot who you were building it for. Maybe it is time to come home, not to a place, but to the people who remind you who you are. So rest deeply, deliberately, not to avoid life, but to meet it with new strength, and return to connection, to conversation, to the warm, imperfect, irreplaceable rhythm of being human together. Because in the end, no success is worth losing your soul, and no achievement is greater than the quiet joy of knowing you are not alone. There is a quiet pain that lingers in many lives, the pain of carrying people who no longer lift you. You try to be patient, to stay loyal, to be the strong one. But slowly you begin to shrink. Your peace fades, your energy drains, and still you hold on, because part of you believes that letting go is cruelty. But what if in some cases, letting go is the most loving thing you can do? The Stoics were not cold. They loved deeply, but they loved wisely. Epictetus said, "The key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best." That is not elitism. That is discernment. Your environment does not just reflect who you are, it shapes who you become. And sometimes protecting your path means creating distance, even from people you once walked beside. We often fear setting boundaries because we mistake them for walls. But boundaries are not about keeping people out. They are about keeping yourself intact. They are about saying, "This is who I am, this is what I can give, and this is what I cannot carry anymore." Maybe there is someone in your life who always leaves you more anxious, more drained, more unsure of yourself. Maybe their words are wrapped in sarcasm. Maybe their support comes with strings. Maybe their presence feels like walking on eggshells. You do not need anger to step away. You only need clarity. Seneca reminded us, associate with people who are likely to improve you. And science backs this. Studies show that emotions are contagious. Spend enough time around negativity and it becomes your lens. But surround yourself with integrity and you begin to rise without even trying. Your standards shift, your thoughts elevate, your peace becomes less negotiable. This does not mean cutting everyone off. It means rebalancing your circle. You can love someone and still love yourself enough to walk away. You can forgive someone and still choose not to let them close again. That is not spite. That is self-respect. Start small. Notice how you feel after spending time with someone. Lighter. Heavier, do you leave clearer or more confused? Your body often knows before your mind does. Listen to that. Let it guide you. And if you need permission to let go, let this be it. You do not owe anyone lifelong access to your energy. People change. Seasons shift. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is outgrow what no longer grows you. But not all wisdom lies in knowing who to walk away from. Some of the deepest strength comes from how you stay present, especially when someone else is speaking. That brings us to a lost art, a rare gift, a quiet superpower: listening. Most people do not listen to understand. They listen to reply. They nod while forming arguments. They wait for their turn to speak. But true listening, the kind that transforms, is different. It is patient, open, undistracted. It is the decision to say, "For this moment, I am choosing your voice over my own." The Stoics practiced this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." To listen is to practice that tolerance. It is to set aside judgment long enough to see the human in front of you. Think of the last time someone really listened to you, not just heard your words but felt them. Did you not walk away lighter, more understood, more real? That is the power you hold when you choose to be present. You give someone the experience of being seen, and in a noisy world, that is one of the rarest gifts. Science supports this too. Research from the Harvard Business Review shows that employees who feel listened to are more engaged, more loyal, and more creative. In relationships, deep listening reduces conflict and increases connection. It lowers cortisol levels and raises empathy. Why? Because listening makes people feel safe, and safety unlocks truth. So how do you become a better listener? Start by doing less. Talk less. Interrupt less. Judge less. Let silence breathe. Ask deeper questions. Pay attention not just to words, but to tone, body language, pauses. Sometimes what is not said is just as important as what is. Put down your phone. Make eye contact. Nod with intent. Respond with care. Not every moment needs advice. Not every wound needs fixing. Sometimes the deepest healing happens when someone simply feels heard. And here is something most people miss. Listening is not just about others. It is also about you. When you slow down enough to truly hear, without distraction, without ego, you begin to hear your own inner voice more clearly, the one drowned out by busyness, the one that knows what you need. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Listening is like that. It may feel slow, unproductive, but it is often the doorway to real understanding, to connection, to the next right step. So choose wisely who you let in, and when you let them in, listen like it matters, because it does. If you are still here listening, then you already know how rare true connection is. You already know how costly it is to keep people who drain you, and how healing it is to be fully heard. So choose better, listen deeper, guard your space, but open your presence. Because the quality of your life will always reflect the quality of your relationships, and the quality of your relationships will always begin with attention. There is a quiet war being fought inside so many people, the battle between who they are and who they think they are supposed to be. From childhood, we are handed masks. Be polite, be successful, be agreeable, be strong. And over time, we begin to wear them so long we forget what our own face looks like underneath. But here is the truth. The Stoics never stopped repeating the highest freedom is to be yourself, fully, deeply, unapologetically. It sounds simple, but it is one of the hardest things you will ever do, because being yourself means risking rejection. It means breaking away from the crowd. It means telling the truth even when it is inconvenient. And it means standing still in a world obsessed with performance and saying, "This is who I am with or without applause." Epictetus reminded his students, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." What he meant was this growth demands authenticity, and authenticity often looks like rebellion to people who live behind their own masks. You will be misunderstood, you will be doubted, but that is not failure, that is the path. We are taught to seek approval, to chase likes, titles, compliments. But the Stoics flipped that upside down. Marcus Aurelius wrote, It never ceases to amaze me we all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. Let that sink in. How often have you dimmed your light so someone else would feel comfortable? How often have you betrayed your truth just to avoid awkward silence? Being yourself is not an act of ego. It is an act of alignment. It means living in such a way that your thoughts, your words, and your actions reflect one another. No pretense, no performance, just presence. And when you live that way, something shifts. You stop chasing. You start attracting the right people, the right opportunities, the right peace, because your life finally starts to resonate at its natural frequency, not the one tuned by fear, but the one tuned by truth. Psychologists call this authentic self-expression, and it is linked to higher emotional well-being, better relationships, and even longer life expectancy. Why? Because when you suppress who you are, your body feels the tension, the stress of pretending, the friction of incongruence. But when you live honestly, your whole system relaxes. You stop hiding. You start breathing. Still many ask, but what if I lose people? What if I disappoint them? And the answer is, you will. But here is the greater truth. If someone only loves the version of you that agrees, performs, and pleases, then what they love is not you. It is a reflection, a shadow, a performance. Seneca said, "A man should be upright, not be kept upright." You were not born to be someone else's idea of good. You were born to be whole. And that means saying no without guilt. It means creating without apology. It means standing alone if needed, not because you want to be different, but because you already are. And what you will find as you start shedding the masks is this: people will notice. Some will pull away, but others will draw closer, not to your performance, but to your presence. You will begin to attract those who resonate with your truth, not your act. And those relationships, they will be deeper, stronger, realer. To be yourself in a world that profits from your conformity is one of the most radical acts of all. It is not easy, but it is essential. So how do you start? Begin by noticing where you are pretending. Who are you around when your smile feels forced, when your voice gets quieter, when your opinions shrink to fit the room? Notice, then question, what would I do here if I trusted myself completely? Practice speaking your truth in small ways. Decline invitations that drain you. Express your real opinion even if it is different. Wear what makes you feel alive, not what fits the trend. These are small revolutions, but they matter. And most importantly, spend time alone, not in loneliness, but in reconnection. The Stoics believed solitude was sacred. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." Go there often. Listen to your thoughts, not the ones planted by fear, the ones that rise in stillness. If you are still listening, I want to remind you of something you may have forgotten. You do not need to earn your worth. You do not need to perform your value. You are already enough, not because someone said so, but because you are here, because you exist, because you feel, because you care. The world does not need another perfect image. It needs your messy truth, your honest voice, your imperfect courage. So take off the mask, breathe deeper, speak truer, stand taller, and if your voice trembles, let it, but do not silence it. Because the moment you start living your truth fully, without waiting for permission, that is the moment you begin to taste freedom, not the kind you shout about, the kind you live. There are things in life you cannot predict: a lost job, a betrayal, an illness, a door that closes when you are just about to step through it. And in those moments, everything in you wants to panic, to resist, to ask, why is this happening to me? But the Stoics would offer a different question. What will you do with it? This is the beating heart of Stoic thought, the unshakable focus on what is within your control, and the radical release of everything that is not. It sounds simple, but how often do we suffer not from the event itself, but from our resistance to it? The flight delay is frustrating not because of the hours lost, but because you thought you would be somewhere else by now. The harsh words sting not only because of what was said, but because you gave their voice the power to define your worth. Epictetus said, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." Let that settle. Your life is not defined by what happens. It is shaped moment by how you choose to meet it. That space between what occurs and how you respond, that is your freedom. And most people never claim it. You were never meant to control everything. You were meant to master your response. That is the game. That is the power. And that is where peace begins. But in modern life, we are taught the opposite. We are sold the illusion of control, that if we work harder, plan better, optimize more, nothing bad will ever happen. And then, when the unexpected arrives, because it always does, we spiral. Because we mistake discomfort for disaster. But the Stoics would say, no, discomfort is not the end. It is the invitation. Marcus Aurelius, who faced war, plague, and betrayal, still wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." His words were not theory. They were a survival guide, a way to stay grounded while the world trembles. So ask yourself, what have you been trying to control lately that was never yours to hold? Someone else's opinion, the speed of success, the behavior of those who refuse to grow, and what would happen if just for a moment you let go, not gave up, but released what was never yours. Imagine the energy that would return to you. This does not mean becoming passive. It means becoming precise. You stop wasting energy on the storm and start building the boat. You shift from reaction to response, from panic to practice, from worry to wisdom. And one of the wisest things you can do in any moment is to come back to now. Most people live in a time that does not exist. They regret the past. They fear the future. They imagine what might go wrong. But rarely, so rarely, do they fully arrive in this breath, this hour, this one moment that actually belongs to them. Seneca warned, life is long if you know how to use it, but we often do not, because we fill it with noise, with overthinking, with imaginary conversations, with plans that never begin and wounds that never end. But here is the gift: presence is always available. You do not have to earn it. You only have to return to it, right here, where your feet are, where your breath is, where your power lives. Try this the next time you feel overwhelmed. Ask yourself, am I in this moment, or am I in my mind? Then do something physical. Place your hand on your chest. Take a slow breath. Feel the ground beneath you. This is not just spiritual, it is biological. Your nervous system calms when you re-enter your body, when you stop spinning stories and start inhabiting the space you are in. You do not need to escape your life. You need to enter it. Presence is not passivity. It is the opposite. It is full engagement. It is showing up for your own experience without hiding, numbing, or rushing. It is eating your meal slowly, looking someone in the eyes, feeling your emotions without judging them. It is asking what is really here instead of what is next. And when you live like that moment by moment, your life begins to feel different. Not because your circumstances change, but because you do. You stop being pulled by everything. You start choosing. You stop blaming. You start building. If you are still here listening, then like me, you are probably done with living passively. Look back at your last 3 decisions. Did they move you forward or hold you back? Were they reactions or reflections? And more importantly, who was making them, your fear or your values? Because every moment you react unconsciously, you reinforce who you were. But every moment you pause and respond intentionally, you become someone new. So do not waste time wishing life were easier. Learn to be stronger. Do not wait for the perfect moment. Practice presence in this one, and do not give away your power to things you cannot change. Reclaim it by changing you. Remember, your thoughts are not facts. Your emotions are not instructions. Your circumstances are not your identity. They are weather. You are the sky. You are what remains steady, spacious, capable of calm, even in the storm. This is not easy. It is a discipline, but it is the most worthy one you will ever pursue. And it begins always by asking, what can I control right now, then doing only that, with grace, with clarity, with the quiet courage of someone who no longer needs to be shaken by every wind. Most people avoid thinking about death. It is uncomfortable, dark, morbid even, so they bury it under distractions, under routines, under 1,000 small urgencies. But in doing so, they miss something essential, because to forget death is to forget how to truly live. The Stoics held a different view. They did not fear death. They faced it, daily, deliberately. They had a phrase for it, memento mori, remember you must die. Not as a curse, not as a threat, but as a call to awaken, to sharpen, to strip away the unnecessary and focus on what actually matters. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. That is not despair. That is direction. It is a compass. A reminder that time is not guaranteed, and because of that, everything becomes sacred." Think about it. If you knew without a doubt that this was your last week alive, what would suddenly become important? Who would you forgive? What would you stop postponing? Who would you say I love you to without hesitation? And why then are those things not important now? The truth is, death is not far away. It is not lurking at the edge of old age. It walks beside you quietly every day, not to haunt you, but to teach you, to remind you that life is not a rehearsal. It is the show, and the curtain can fall at any time. That is why the Stoics urged us to prepare not with fear, but with focus, to write our values in action, to settle our conflicts, to live so fully and clearly that when death comes, we do not beg for more time. We nod and say, yes, I used what I was given. But instead, many live like they are immortal. They waste years on things that drain them. They stay in roles that deaden them. They hold grudges like they have infinite time to mend. But they do not, and neither do you. This is not a reason to panic. It is a reason to prioritize. Because when you accept death, you stop asking, what will people think, and start asking, what will I regret? Seneca said, let us prepare our minds as if we had come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. That is the shift. From delay to now, from intention to movement. And the beauty of memento mori is this: it frees you. It quiets the noise. It makes comparison ridiculous. Envy evaporates. Petty arguments lose their grip. Because when you see the finiteness of life, you stop wasting it, trying to win games that do not matter. You begin to appreciate the taste of your morning coffee, the way sunlight hits your floor, the sound of laughter even when it is not yours. You become present not because it is trendy, but because this moment is the only one you are promised. Death teaches you how to see. And here is something else. The Stoics believed that death is not the end. It is a return, a release, a completion of nature's cycle. Epictetus said, I must die. Must I then die groaning? Even in the face of death, he sought dignity, stillness, clarity, and that is the invitation to us all. You cannot outrun death, but you can choose how to meet it. Will you meet it having lived for others' approval or for your own truth? Will you meet it having filled your days with noise or with meaning? Will you meet it holding tightly to resentment or free in forgiveness? You decide not in one grand moment, but in how you live your ordinary days, because those days become your life, and your life becomes your legacy. If you are still here listening, then you are someone who knows at least deep down that time is slipping by, and maybe you are ready to stop wasting it. Maybe you are done pretending that someday is guaranteed. Maybe it is time to start living like each breath is a miracle, because it is. So do not fear the end. Let it illuminate the middle. Live so fully that you do not need more years to feel complete. Speak so truthfully that your words echo beyond your last breath. And love so fiercely that even after you are gone, your presence remains in hearts, in stories, in the quiet strength you once shared. This is not about being fearless. It is about being awake. And once you wake up truly, painfully, beautifully awake, you will never sleepwalk through life again. No one escapes difficulty, not you, not me, not the Stoics. But what separates those who crumble from those who rise is not what happens to them, it is what they choose to see inside it. There are moments in life that feel like collapse, the loss of someone you love, a betrayal that cuts deeper than words, the day your plans fall apart. In those moments, the mind races, why me? What did I do to deserve this? Will this ever end? But what if pain is not a punishment? What if it is an invitation? The Stoics believed it is not the event that breaks you, it is your interpretation of it. Epictetus said, men are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them, which means suffering is not a sentence, it is a choice. A hard truth, yes, but also a liberating one. Because if suffering is a choice, so is strength, so is meaning, so is healing. Adversity strips away illusions. It shows you what is essential, who truly cares, what really matters. It humbles you, and in doing so, it clarifies you. Marcus Aurelius, who endured plague, political betrayal, and personal loss, still wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That line is not just poetic, it is a battle cry. It says, this pain will not be wasted, this wound will not define me, this hardship will become the raw material for my transformation. Modern science backs this ancient wisdom. Psychologists call it post-traumatic growth, the documented phenomenon where people after significant adversity report greater clarity, deeper gratitude, stronger relationships, and a more grounded sense of purpose. They suffer, but they grow. So how does that happen? It begins with one decision to stop asking why me and start asking what now. You do not need to understand the pain to make something from it. You just need to turn toward it rather than away. Sit with the grief. Name the loss. Feel it fully, but do not build your home in it. Pain is a messenger. It carries information about what you care about, what you need to release what you must face. It asks for your attention, not your identity. The Stoics knew this. They did not suppress emotion. They processed it through reason. They questioned their first reactions. They observed their assumptions. And in doing so, they created space for stillness, for truth, for choice. There is a strength in acceptance that few people understand. Acceptance is not giving up. It is giving in to reality, to what is, to the facts without resistance, because you cannot transform what you refuse to face. Imagine standing in a river trying to push back the current with your bare hands. That is what resistance looks like. But the moment you let go, lift your feet and flow with it, you discover movement, direction, a new kind of power. The same is true for pain. When you stop fighting the fact that it hurts and begin learning from it, that is where resilience begins. Ask yourself, what is this challenge revealing in me? What is it demanding that I strengthen? What part of me is being called forward that could never have surfaced without this very storm? You will not always get a clear answer, but even asking the question begins the healing. Seneca said difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. You would not curse the weight at the gym. You know it tears you to build you. Pain works the same way. And no, you do not have to love it, but you can respect it. And here is something few talk about sometimes. The gift of pain is not strength. It is softness, a tenderness you would never have known unless your own heart had been broken open. Compassion, patience, the ability to sit with another person's suffering without rushing to fix it, because now you know what that feels like. Some of the most powerful people are not those who avoided pain. They are the ones who learn to carry it differently, as fuel, not chains. If you are still listening, I know you have walked through something. Maybe you are in it right now, and maybe part of you is tired of pretending it does not hurt. You do not have to pretend, but you also do not have to be defeated. You can feel it and heal. You can be tender and strong. You can fall apart and rebuild. What matters most is that you keep going, not perfectly, not quickly, but honestly. So accept what has happened, not because it was fair, but because it is. Let that truth set you free from the illusion that things should have been different, from the fantasy that your life must follow a straight line, from the heaviness of carrying resistance that never served you. Because once you accept what is, you can build what can be, and you will build it not in spite of the pain, but with it, as your material, as your proof, as your message to the world that even from the hardest places something good can still grow. There is a kind of noise that never leaves us. It hums beneath our daily lives, the notifications, the background chatter, the endless input from screens and voices that tell us what to want, what to fear, what to fix. And without even realizing it, we become addicted to it, because noise keeps us from facing what silence would reveal. But the Stoics knew what most people have forgotten: silence is not emptiness. It is clarity. It is presence. It is the place where truth echoes loudest, not outside but within. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." But how can you know your thoughts, your real thoughts, if you never sit in stillness long enough to hear them? How can you find direction if your mind is constantly filled with other people's voices? The world celebrates noise. It rewards speed, rewards speaking, rewards reacting. But the greatest strength is often found in restraint, in the decision to pause, to observe, to let things pass through you without clinging, without commentary. We fear silence because it removes our distractions, but that is also why it frees us. In silence, you are no longer performing, you are no longer reaching, you are simply being. And in that being, something ancient wakes up, a knowing that was never loud but always true. Science confirms what the Stoics intuited centuries ago. Studies show that regular periods of quiet, even just a few minutes, lower cortisol, improve memory, increase creativity, and restore emotional balance. Your brain does not just rest in silence, it repairs, and yet we avoid it. We fill every space with music, with scrolling, with busy work, because being alone with our thoughts can feel dangerous. What if the silence reveals something uncomfortable, something unresolved? But that is the point. The silence is not trying to hurt you. It is trying to heal you. It is showing you what still aches so you can finally tend to it. It is surfacing what has been buried so you can breathe again. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. We waste it on noise, on reacting, on talking over our own intuition. But silence is where wisdom settles. It is the soil in which insight grows." So how do you return to it? You begin by making space. 5 minutes of stillness in the morning before touching your phone. A quiet walk without headphones. A breath between responses, not to delay, but to discern. You stop rushing to fill every silence in conversation. You allow yourself to pause instead of always having something to say. You let quiet moments stretch, uncomfortable at first, but rich beneath the surface. And in doing that, you begin to hear things you missed. The tone behind the words, the feeling behind the silence, the truth beneath the noise. Your attention sharpens, your reactivity softens, your depth expands. The Stoics practiced this. They meditated not with mantras but with reflection. They journaled. They wrote letters. They asked themselves hard questions. They sat in solitude not as escape but as alignment. Because silence is not disconnection. It is reconnection to self, to nature, to meaning. If you are still here listening, I invite you to consider this. When was the last time you were truly still, not scrolling, not planning, just aware. And if your answer is, I do not remember, then maybe it is time to return. Return to your breath. Return to the weight of your body in the chair. Return to the rhythm of your thoughts, not to stop them, but to understand them. Let the silence stretch. Let it feel strange. Then let it soften you. Because in that space, you might remember something important. You are not the noise in your mind. You are the awareness behind it. You are not the chaos. You are the calm. And the more you practice stillness, the more you become a source of it, not just for yourself, but for everyone around you. Your presence begins to soothe. Your pauses begin to speak louder than your words. Your silence becomes strength. So go there often, not to escape the world, but to return to it clearer, fuller, more grounded. The world does not need more noise. It needs people who can hold stillness, like fire, steady, quiet, powerful. By now you have heard the lessons. You have walked through the ideas. But none of it matters unless you live it. And that begins not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, not when life gets easier. It begins now in this breath, in this moment, in this quiet decision to take responsibility for all of it. The way you show up, the way you speak, the way you think when no one is watching. The Stoics never promised a perfect life. They promised a powerful one if you dared to face it with clear eyes and a steady soul. And the truth is, you will forget some of what you have heard. You will get pulled back into old habits. You will react before reflecting. You will feel doubt. That is okay. This path is not about being flawless. It is about being faithful to the kind of person you know you were meant to be. Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be and then do what you have to do. That is your call. To define yourself by design, not default. To decide, not just drift. Because you are always becoming. Every word you speak, every choice you make, every thought you allow to repeat, they are all votes. Not for what you want, but for who you are, and if you do not choose, the world will choose for you. So choose awareness over distraction. Choose presence over performance. Choose inner peace over external praise. You do not need to become anyone else. You just need to remember who you are when you are not afraid. Let go of the story that says you are behind. Let go of the belief that you need fixing. What you need is remembering, a returning to the truth that strength is already in you, not loud, not flashy, but steady and enough. Seneca said, it is not that we are given a short life, but that we waste much of it. Do not waste yours chasing what fades. Build what lasts. Integrity, discipline, compassion, stillness, these are not traits. They are choices made over and over in the little moments no one sees. And in time they become who you are, not because you declared it, but because you lived it. So when life gets loud, return to stillness. When fear rises, return to clarity. When others lash out, return to composure. Not to be passive, but to be powerful in a different way. You have more control than you think, not over the world, but over yourself. And that is more than enough. If you are still here, truly here, then maybe something in this spoke to the part of you that is done with shallow living. Maybe you are ready to live with weight, with meaning, with direction. So carry this forward, not as a script to memorize, but as a mirror to revisit, not as something outside of you, but something already inside of you awakened. This life is not just happening to you, it is responding to you. Show up differently, and it meets you differently. You were not born to merely survive. You were born to build, to break patterns, to heal, to lead yourself even when no one else does. That is Stoicism. That is self-mastery. That is freedom. Not in some distant ideal future, but right here, in every choice. So breathe deep, stand tall, step forward. This life is yours.
If this message stirred something in you, don't let it fade. Write one thing down that you'll start doing this week. 2025 doesn't magically change anything you do. And your future begins the moment you decide to move, even just a little.